Today I want to talk really quickly about SEO. I know it's a topic that lots of people struggle with just because there's so many different elements to it, lots of technicalities to it. The fact that Google change it all the time deliberately so that everyone gets confused and has to keep kind of relearning it. So I don't want to get too caught up in all the kind of technical side of SEO, but what I do want to make you understand is copy can play a huge part in SEO, and not for the reasons you think, not because of keyword stuffing, not because we have to make sure that we're tagging all our meta descriptions with the right copy and headlines and H1 and H2 and all the other terminology and jargon you've probably heard, but mainly because you want to just try and keep people on your website longer. If you keep people on your website longer, Google will rank you higher, and that is such a simple idea to grasp, especially when you're thinking about writing converting copy. So there's three ways to do this. There's lots of ways to do this, but I'm going to cover three today. So the first one that I want to talk about is that you need to make sure your copy is designed for skimmers. So people will always skim a page first. You will never go straight in unless you've been hunting for this piece of information for a while. You'll never hit a website, go straight in and kind of read it word for word. You skim first. Is it worth your while? Then you go back and read the rest. So if you can design your pages for the skimmers, so that means big headlines, that means breaking up text with images, that means really making sure you're putting all the kind of information or meaty content near the top for when they're skimming through. That will all help people stay on the site longer because they'll skim, they'll make sure they'll know it's worth their while, and then they'll read it so they're on the site for longer. So the second tip I want to share with you is you have to make it easy for people to navigate around. Google love it when people are clicking to different pages, reading pages, navigating through the site. Internal linking is really important. So wherever you mention another page in your copy, make sure you're linking to that page as well. And we've talked lots in our previous videos about the different buttons on your website and the call to journey buttons, which I've talked about, which is where you send people around your site on through your buttons. So making sure people are navigating really easily through your site and it's not complicated. There's lots of different layers to pages. You should only go 3 layers deep with your website. So make sure it's easy to navigate. That's tip number 3. That's tip number 2. And tip number 3 is making sure your messages are really consistent. So people love familiarity. People feel safe. They like things that are familiar to them. So keep repeating your brand messages. The words and phrases you're using, please don't be scared to keep using them throughout your site. You want this website to read like a whole journey, like a whole story. So keeping messages consistent. With your headlines, if you say something in one headline, you can use it on other pages in another subhead. So make sure your messages are consistent. That builds a familiarity principle, and that means that people will like reading it. They'll feel familiar with it, and then they'll stay on your site longer as well. So those are your 3 tips today for SEO, which is to keep people on your website longer so Google will rank you higher. So tip number 1 is write for the skimmers. Those are the people that are going to skim your site and then go back and read it. Make sure you're writing for those people. Tip number 2 is make sure it's easy to navigate around your site. So lots of buttons that take people around the site, lots of linking in the words. And tip number 3 is making sure all your messages are consistent and they're seeing a really full, robust story as they're reading your website, so that they stay on there longer. All right, that's my 3 SEO tips. I hope you enjoyed them. Bye bye.